While putting some water and a scoop of protein powder in a shaker bottle and calling it a day is a very quick and effective way to have a protein shake. It's not really the pinnacle of the experience you can have. There are a lot of ways that if you are interested in making the recipe a bit more complex, you can actually chef up your protein shakes pretty nice. So I wanted to make a quick video talking about all of my favorite ingredients that I've found and experimented with to improve my protein shake experience. So before we get started talking about the extra additives, I want to talk briefly about protein powder. I recommend having a variety of flavors. You're going to eventually use all of this protein powder, so even though it's an upfront cost to have multiple flavors in rotation at once, you're actually not losing out on any. Here I have 3 different flavors, and Optimum Nutrition is the brand that I prefer. Ultimately, protein powder is one of the cheapest per gram sources of protein you can get, so not a bad pickup. The first and most important thing to discuss is your use of liquid. A lot of people just use straight water, but this leaves, non-surprisingly, a watery taste. If you're just using a blender bottle and shaking it up with some protein powder, you're really missing out on a lot. For a not too high calorie addition, I would sub your water for almond milk. You can do any other sort of milk or milk substitute and it works fine, but almond milk is relatively low calorie at 30 calories per gram. The next thing you can do is incorporate some sort of alternative liquids aside from your main source that can do different things. Coffee creamer is actually not a bad addition to a protein shake, as you don't really have to add a whole lot in order to get the flavor benefits of sweetness. Here, the super creamer is pretty low calorie at 40 per 3 tablespoons. And the Coffee Mate, while not as low calorie, for maybe like 2 tablespoons, you get a good amount of flavor. Greek yogurt, where you really should be conservative with how much you add, as it can go a little bit too far, but it adds a nice little tang and also is a good source of protein, so not bad to add, but that's pretty mainstream in addition to most protein shakes. Another one for really good flavor and texture is coconut milk. It's very high in calorie, so be conservative, but you don't need a lot of flavor. Aside from those ingredients that kind of indirectly can give you some sweetness or other interesting flavors, direct sweeteners, I would recommend trying out molasses, which adds sort of a brown sugary flavor, and you don't need a whole lot of it. While kind of expensive, adding Walden Farms can be good in any sort of flavor profile you wish, but my choice sweetener most of the time is pure stevia extract, which is free from any sort of dilutants such as sugar alcohol. It's extremely sweet though, so not much is needed. Now for things that can improve texture, PB2 is powdered peanut butter, where they removed a lot of the fat content, but you still get that nutty flavor. You enjoy that, and it also adds as a bit of a thickener. Another thing you can do is add in Jello pudding mix or cornstarch. Cornstarch being the main active in Jello pudding mix, so you can add in the Jello pudding mix if you want some sweetness and flavor, or if you just want the thickening property, cornstarch is sufficient. The last thing is ice. This is also a pretty mainstream addition, but can really alter the texture depending on how much you want it. It can range from full slushy to just adding a bit of chill. Now for some miscellaneous ingredients that can do a variety of things. MCT oil powder adds a pretty unique flavor as well as a variety of health benefits that you can Google yourself, but among them are improving cardiovascular health and blood pressure, things like that. Cocoa powder adds a nice chocolatey flavor and is not very high calorie if you get in the unsweetened stuff, which I recommend. Adding in about 10 grams of walnuts to a recipe for a protein shake adds a very, very nice and hefty nutty flavor, which I tend to really enjoy, especially if you're going for a more dessert type protein shake. And also adding in a dash of cinnamon can really add that extra dimension of flavor. The last thing that I would recommend, and be conservative of course, is maybe like a 3-finger pinch of salt. Salt is a flavor enhancer, we all know this, and if you've had chocolate or anything like that that has salt in it, you know that it does wonders, so adding a little pinch of protein shake helps. So now with my example recipe, I'm starting off by adding in about 1.5 cups of almond milk. Next, I'm going to be adding my scoop of protein powder. This I typically pack down before adding. Next, I'm going to go ahead and add in about a tablespoon of the cocoa powder for chocolatiness, and one of my favorite ingredients, cornstarch, to improve texture. Sort of working in conjunction with the cornstarch is a bit of ice. The two together will really volumize the protein shake, we'll see in a bit. Then a 3-finger pinch of salt and a couple shakes of cinnamon for a little bit of flavor amplification and complexity. And then a core ingredient is a tiny pinch of stevia extract. I use the back of a spoon just to get a small amount, as the stuff is 100 times, not more, sweeter than sugar. Adding this in, you can adjust the amount, but I like my protein shakes pretty saccharine sweet, and this does a lot for me. Now, as you can see with all the ingredients together, it's about at 2 cups, and now I'm going to go ahead and blend it. And now with everything all together, you can see that the volume has doubled to about 4 cups. This is largely in part due to the cornstarch as well as the ice acting together. The cornstarch really gets frothy, and the ice, when ground up into crystals, really expands the drink quite a bit. If you let this settle, it will eventually start to fizzle down. It's very frothy, and just to demonstrate that, I'll do 4. So as you can see here, it's pretty thick. It's very close to the texture of a milkshake, though not as fatty in mouthfeel, but it does quite a bit for me. So I hope you enjoy.